Hi, my name is Cory Adamson, and I'm going to be sharing with you a basic presentation that's been proven over the last number of years to be successful in introducing the concept of a fixed index annuity to clients, and a process that's been proven to generate significant premium for agents and advisors who have implemented it. This includes advisors brand new to working with annuities, as well as experienced advisors who are just looking for a simple, proven process. Many advisors have a process to work with new clients, and this webinar is not intended to change that process in any way. If you do have a proven process, continue to use what works. If you don't, then what we're going to discuss today may be exactly what you need to implement. So as we get started, let's outline a little bit about the process we're going to discuss. First, we utilize what we call the 3 L's technique. From there, we transition into a discovery process, or what many would call a fact finder, that when used properly will help you discover the concerns the client has and where we can potentially help them. Let's get started. The 3 L's, which I'm about to share with you, is a basic presentation that several years ago one of our top advisors relayed to us that he was using to begin conversations with clients about their retirement investments. It's been used over the last number of years by many of our advisors to simply explain the value of fixed and fixed indexed annuities to prospective clients. As we begin, let me just say that we have these tools available to you, and you can request them from your marketing consultant here at SMS. As I begin going through the 3 L's, get out a notepad and write down names of prospects that might be able to benefit from hearing this simple story. Also, please know that this presentation is designed to be handwritten out for the prospect as you do it, and I will stop periodically and share when you will want to write specific things. With that, I'm going to begin as if I'm walking through the 3 L's presentation with a prospect. Mr. and Mrs. Jones, as I usually tell my clients, outside of your mattress, there are really only 3 types of vehicles I recommend in which you can hold your liquid wealth. The first vehicle is called a fixed rate vehicle. Most of my clients are doing one, if not several, of these options. A fixed rate vehicle could be any of the following: a savings account, a checking account, or a CD. Now, all these you'd get from a bank. They're safe, they're guaranteed, and they give you a fixed rate of return. Another option is something I use with my clients, and it's called a multi-year guarantee annuity or a fixed annuity, and these are issued by insurance companies. A multi-year guarantee annuity is very much like a CD. However, it may put you in a tax-advantaged position by deferring your taxes on interest gains. It's also safe from market losses and guaranteed, and will give you a fixed rate of interest, regardless of any market volatility. So if we were to graph out a fixed rate of return on a graph, it might look something like this. Now this is where you draw a graph and gradually increasing line on your graph at the end and write 1 to 3%. Now, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, it depends on how long of a term you choose and where you purchase your annuity from, but right now you're going to see somewhere between a 1 and 3% rate of return in a fixed rate vehicle. Some products might credit more and some less, but on average a fixed rate annuity could credit at or about 1 to 3%. Mr. and Mrs. Jones, if I were to ask you what you like about a fixed rate of return vehicle, what might you say? And let the client respond, and typically here at this point they're going to say something like guaranteed principal or safe or something along those lines. Whatever they say, write down as close as possible to the exact words. Mr. and Mrs. Jones, if I were to ask you what you dislike about a fixed rate of return, what might you say? And at this point they're going to say very low interest rates, bad returns, something along those lines. Again, as close as possible, write down exactly what they say. Our second vehicle for liquid money is a variable risk product. I don't sell variable risk products as I'm not securities licensed. However, many of my clients will have a portion of their liquid money in a variable risk product. Examples of a variable risk product might be a variable annuity, a 401k or other employer-sponsored plan, individual stocks, bonds, or mutual funds. In variable risk products, the returns are unknown. You have both the potential for gains, but also the potential for losses. On the second graph, write a question mark. As a securities product, the risk is held with the consumer. Mr. and Mrs. Jones, if I were to ask you what you like about this variable risk product, what might you say? Again, let the client respond and try to write down as close as possible to exactly what they say. They're going to typically say something about, I can get better returns, or something along those lines. Mr. and Mrs. Jones, if I were to ask you what you dislike about a variable risk product, what might you say? At this point, again, they're typically going to say something like, I could lose money, something along those lines. Whatever they say, as close as possible, write it down. Okay, so far we've discussed a fixed rate vehicle and a variable risk vehicle. We've written down several things. Now, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, if you could eliminate 2 of those 4 things we've written down, which 2 would you eliminate? Typically, the client wants the low interest rate and the risk of loss eliminated. Mr. and Mrs. Jones, I think you might be interested in a 3rd type of product. This is a hybrid vehicle sold by an insurance carrier and takes the best of the prior 2 products. It's called a fixed indexed annuity. With this annuity, you're given a principal guarantee, which means you cannot lose money due to market volatility. However, the interest credits are linked to the performance of a stock market index, so you have more upside potential. If we were to graph out a fixed indexed annuity, it might look something like this. On the 3rd graph, you're going to want to draw basically a staircase, the landing part being horizontal to represent a 0% return. So Mr. and Mrs. Jones, when the market's going up, you have the potential to capture interest based on a portion of the upside market performance. However, when the market goes down, you're not going to lose any of the principal or any of the interest that's been locked into your contract up to that very date. Would a fixed index annuity be something you might want to investigate further? Here is how your finished product should look. Now, at this point, we want to transition to the discovery session, or what we're going to call the fact finder. All you need to say at this point is, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, I'm not sure if a fixed index annuity is a good fit for your situation or not yet. I need to ask you some questions to see if this could fit into your retirement income plan. Fair enough? And typically at this point, it's a quick transition and you just start asking questions in the fact finder. Now, let's discuss fact finding just a little bit. Many financial advisors and insurance agents believe that the key to the annuity sale is in the close with the prospect, or having the highest income story, or the best product. Top coaches to financial advisors agree, however, that the close is actually a foregone conclusion if you do quality fact-finding before recommending any solutions. In other words, the key to the sale and really building a long-term client is in quality fact-finding, or what some would call a solid discovery process. So let's take a look at the fact finder. Once again, remember this is available from your marketing consultant, so you can get started using this process right away. As we look at the fact finder, you will notice that there are 6 pages. Besides just a couple of basics, it's very important that you start on page 2 of the fact finder with the emotionally based questions instead of the questions that are about the client's assets. It's been proven that the relationship is deeper if you can discover how a client feels about their money and what their concerns are before asking about their assets. As we're looking at the fact finder, remember that there are really 4 reasons that prospects put their money in an annuity. Income now, say within a 6 or 12-month period. Income later, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road. Transitioning their assets to their heirs in the most effective manner, or what some would call legacy planning. And the final reason prospects put their money in an annuity is just to improve the return on their safe money or to get away from the market risk in their investments. As we look at the actual fact finder starting on page 2, we begin with the emotionally based questions that tap into how the client feels about their money and the things that are important to them. As we continue on page 3 of the fact finder, we see that there are more questions to really learn about how the prospect thinks about their money, about their legacy. And then in section C2, we begin to help them prioritize their concerns about their money and their financial life. Here, you're going to want to hand them the paper by turning it around to them, hand them a pen, and tell them that here are some concerns that others typically have. Take a minute, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, and mark off those that you feel are concerns for you. As the advisor, then be quiet and let them check them off. They will check those that are their concerns. Shown here are the rest of the questions in that section. Now we begin to discuss their actual financial situation, and that begins with life insurance. Next, we take a look at their current assets and the values. This is where you ask them if you can just get a copy of the most recent statement. especially if the account is their employer retirement plan or another securities account. Do not be afraid to ask for their statements. On CDs, if nothing else, get the value, the interest rate, and the maturity date if you have it. This can help you build an inventory of possible future sales as things come due in the future. Next, we move on to their income information. Make sure you ask about their total household income and expenses. These things will be very important for suitability purposes and planning in the future should you sell an annuity. Next, we look at how aggressive they are when investing, and we help them prioritize how important certain areas of their financial picture are to them on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being no importance at all, and 10 being extremely important. Finally, we begin to wrap up. You could see a few of these final questions here. Now, as you wrap up, make absolutely sure that you set the follow-up appointment for that second meeting before you part ways with the prospect. This is critical, and if that appointment is not made at the first meeting, your odds of getting the second appointment and closing the sale decline significantly. Sometimes advisors say they ran out of time or needed to get moving. Again, I cannot emphasize enough that you need to set the appointment at that first meeting for the next meeting. All that needs to be said is, Mr. Jones, now that I know a little bit more about you and your situation, I need to take this information back to my office, review it, analyze it, and to develop a plan that can help you accomplish your objectives. That will take a few days. Does next Wednesday at 4 p.m. or next Thursday at 10 a.m. work best for you to get together and look at the recommendations? So let's review. First, we discussed the 3 L's technique. Next, we transition into using a fact finder effectively. And then finally, we transition to the follow-up appointment. The question I have for you, advisors that are listening to this today, who can you go see tomorrow to use this process with? Contact your marketing consultant today to get the tools we discussed as well as to discuss cases you are working on. Call them at 877-645-4939. Thank you again for taking the time today with us, and make it a great week.